and we never forgot where we came from, even as we were envisioning where we might go.
I lived in a very high crime area. There were some drive-by shootings. So it was important to find a place like Mother's Club that had a simple, peaceful, calming atmosphere where the morals and values were good.
Mother's Club was a Quaker group to begin with. I think that it was Mara that set up the group, not the children's group, but the adult group. She went door to door to find parents that would be interested in a group, and they were.
My friends didn't have children, and I really felt like I didn't have a life. I had been working before, I'd gone to college, and now I was home with these children who I loved very much, but I was home all day. So I was lonely. I didn't realize it, but I was lonely. And a friend of mine, she was doing her practicum at this place called Mother's Club. And she said, "Oh, it's so nice, Sue, you ought to go down there." I think for 6 months, I did not hardly speak. I was just very, very shy. And I was very unsure of myself.
The first experience really that I had at Mother's Club, it was in the fall. And the moms had come. You could see that they were terribly shy and didn't want to look you in the eye. But they were all in a circle in the playground. Each one was supposed to say, "My name is so-and-so, and I'm the mother of so-and-so." Well, that just put them all instantly on an equal footing.
There wasn't anyone who knew much about children, and that's where I came in.
Pasadena was under a court order to desegregate its schools. So Mother's Club had a big focus on integration and preparing children to go to public schools. It was a very integrated place. There were, African American families, there were white families, there were middle class families, there were poor families. So I became aware that I really didn't know what it was to be poor. So it was very eye-opening. We had a little fundraiser every year, which was like a cultural festival. I was in charge of the drinks, the sodas. First time I'd been in charge of anything like that. And I was like a nervous wreck. And I went back to work. So that was the end of Mother's Club for me for a while. And then I remarried and I had 2 more children. And I thought, well, I'll go back to Mother's Club. Before, Mother's Club was really run a lot by volunteers, but it was very grassroots. So when I came back, they were trying to organize to get a board of directors and to apply for United Way funding and to grow a little bit. So they asked me to be on the board, which I didn't know what that meant either. So I said, sure, I'll be on the board. And we had a part-time administrator, and she quit, and we didn't know what to do. I thought, well, how hard could it be to be an administrator? It'd be a nice job for me. So I said, well, I'll do that. If you want, I'll be the part-time administrator.
I remember when I first started to go to Mother's Club, I was looking for a place for someone to keep my child while I go to work. I thought I needed a job. What I needed was the nurturing and the support that I got here. And I think Mother's Club took care of the needs you didn't know you had.
She was part of them. She wasn't separated from the mothers. That's important.
She really spent time to know each mom and know what they needed. And if they needed to be challenged, she'd give them a challenge. If they just needed some peace, she'd give them some peace.
This Proposition 13, which was the property tax reform, that really had an immediate impact on income, because the community colleges got really hit. And we had been getting a lot of support from PCC. The teachers, the parent education person was paid for by PCC. Suddenly, that money was gone. And I was in tears. I was in charge, and we were short of money, and we had to pay this money. We didn't have money. And I was crying to her, we don't have enough money, and what do we have to pay this? And she said, well, how much money do you need? And I said, $3,000. And she got out her checkbook and she wrote a check for $3,000 and she gave it to me. I was just overwhelmed by the faith that she had in the organization, not me, but the faith she had in Mother's Club.
What really was the turning point was when I met Sue. And I just sensed that she had what it took to organize this and the vision it took to make this meaningful for not just the children, but for the parents too.
My children are 12 years apart. So with my son, I sent him to school and I waited for him to come home. It was school and it was home. With my daughter, because I had been in Mother's Club, I had learned how to interact in the classroom with the teacher and the children. So that it was a natural thing that when my daughter went to kindergarten, I went to school with her.
And Wanda wasn't very happy with the teacher. We had this little pamphlet that told you what to expect in a child's education. So one day she came back to Mother's Club and said, "Can I get one of those pamphlets?" She said, "I think I need to give it to my child's teacher." I don't know how the teacher felt about it. But, she kept advocating for her child all the way through high school, and now her daughter is a graduate of PCC and is a teacher there at their child care center.
She knows almost all the mothers here. She knows them as people and not as a mass of clients.
I had this wonderful group of examples in the board of directors that I watched negotiate and I watched create what happened in Mother's Club. I took those skills and in my job today, I manage a breast center.
And if you see in Mother's Club a healthy organization, and I think you do, a huge amount of the responsibility for that rests with Sue Kujawa.
One thing that I noticed after I had been away, it was quite clear that the population had changed at Mother's Club. Now it was mostly lower income families, people who were not as educated and who were struggling more. And then the other difference was there were more women who were Spanish speaking. And so I thought, well, that sounds like it's important. And at the same time, of course, their children didn't speak English. And I had a teacher at the time, Julie Espinosa, and she realized that she couldn't communicate with her students anymore because they were all speaking Spanish. And she went to PCC and began taking Spanish. And she was really ahead of the curve because now it's well accepted that developmentally we want children to have their home language and learn this new English language.
The northwest portion of the city has been a source of social problems of one kind or another, including the kind of needs that are served so well by Mother's Club, providing of parenting experience and skill to young mothers who might otherwise simply be unsupported in any meaningful way, and at the same time to provide a rich environment for young people.
California approved this tax on tobacco products, which was called Proposition 10. Out of that grew the First Five Commission with a huge pot of money that was to go to children and their families from birth to 5 years old. That was exactly what we were doing. And we just had to learn the language and learn how to say it the way the experts were saying it.
She's the person that you would take with you or send off on her own if you really needed to convince somebody that they were making a worthwhile investment. She's really even the main reason why Mother's Club's been able to raise the kind of funding that it's been able to raise, not just for this building, but also to have that ongoing investment, because the funders such as First Five, talking with people I know that are involved in those organizations, they think the world of Mother's Club. They think that Mother's Club is a great investment because of Sue and the fact that she has an evidence-based program, one that really shows results.
Well, I first knew Sue and Mother's Club soon after I moved to Pasadena in the early 90s. And they were still over in the Quaker Meeting House, and I remember going to gatherings there and people bringing in salads and taking out the toys and putting the toys away and making the space work when it didn't really work. And I thought, what a lot of energy goes into this, and how wonderful this whole operation is, the difference it makes in the lives of the mothers and the children. And Sue Kujawa, I remember from day one, was everywhere.
So we had some funding that we knew was pretty certain for several years. We could see that the space we were in really made it difficult for us to do the best job that we could do.
We were being pushed out of the Quaker meeting place. Then we had the opportunity to buy this property.
Mary Lois said to me, "I hope I can be generous to you when you have to do this building." I don't think she realized how generous I was going to ask her to be, but bless her heart, she said yes.
Sue Kujawa, on first glance, doesn't appear to be the kind of person who can extract millions of dollars from wealthy individuals. But in fact, she has that skill.
We went to a professional business bank. We walked in there in our power suits and we said, we got a deal for you. You loan us $2 million. We're going to buy this building. We're going to make it into a beautiful place and we'll pay you back. So we had this loan. We had a big gift. I had Sarah Orff, who was rising to the challenge of writing these very complex grants. And I had Judy Wilson, who was fearless and who rallied the board. They knew that they were going to have to make a big gift, but they all said yes. And it was a great adventure.
One of the things that I so admire about Sue is that she is completely devoted to what Mother's Club is. She kept that clarity throughout moving into this new space, and we never forgot where we came from, even as we were envisioning where we might go after the building had been built. I remember some moments that she had and said, Judy, I don't know if I'm the right person to now carry on for Mother's Club. We took her to dinner with a few other board members, and as women, professional women, talked about all the times when we had doubted ourselves. And you grow.
I think that the population it serves today is probably the most needy population in Pasadena, and because of the language barrier. They don't know what's available to them. Fearful things happen to them. They don't understand the process. And here they can turn to Sue or to anyone here in this organization and ask for help and direction. That's so important in today's times. I just walked down the hall and it's heartwarming to see the numbers of women who are sitting at tables and desks and talking to people and obviously learning or working on a project and becoming empowered.
I think you see in Pasadena, as you see in other places, there is a greater gulf between those who are well off and those who are very, very poor. I think people are sometimes surprised that Pasadena is like that. They don't have that image. You know, we have families, living in garages. Multiple family members living in one apartment where they can't even sleep at the same time. Some people are working while others are sleeping and others go off to work and then they come back to sleep, and you're trying to raise children in this environment. The families that come to us have really serious issues. The first step for them is not to be afraid and to know that they're not going to be judged, and to know that they're going to be safe here, and to know that we love their children and we think their children are wonderful.
It's an amazing journey, really, to think about where Mother's Club was when it started and where Sue was. Sue was a volunteer for Mother's Club and then slowly became a talented and wonderful executive director. And really, it is Sue's vision and Sue's commitment that makes Mother's Club what it is today.
I feel that it was a gift that was given to me to be at Mother's Club. I could have been a sort of a small, petty person, and I'm a better person, I'm a bigger person because of what I received at Mother's Club. And my eyes were open to things that, were happening right in front of me that I wouldn't have been aware of. And I could have been a judgmental person, and instead I was able to see myself as a part of this humanity that we are struggling to raise our children. We all want the best for our children. One of the things from Mother's Club that Eleanor Freeman used to say all the time was, we all have something to give, we all have something we need. I'm deeply aware of that, and it's just been a life-saving thing for me that I was here at Mother's Club when I was, and how I had this long opportunity to be a part of it and to see what it's become now.
There will never be a time when Sue's influence and impact on Mother's Club will not be felt and remembered.